Are you wanting me to open it all? There.
Stand back a second. Just to frame you better.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just a few seconds. We're going to give everyone a chance who will be joining us a chance to log in, so I'm just going to go back in a moment. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Wacom Tablet. Thank you for joining today's Rico webinar, Making Your Sales Teams Memorable in a Virtual Workplace. Virtual selling is a topic that is very much in the spotlight as we head into 2022 and hover between fully remote and hybrid work models. Before I hand the presentation over to our speakers for today's session, I have a few housekeeping details to cover. First, this webinar will be recorded and shared early next week after the long holiday weekend here in Canada. Next, all participants have been muted, but we'd love to answer any questions you may have for our presenters during the session, so feel free to type into the Teams chat window. And if you don't get your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with a response via email one-on-one afterward. So, without further delay, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Rico Canada's Tatiana McGuire. Tatiana?
Hi folks, hope you're doing well today. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start off by discussing some remote work changes that we've seen. So as you know, the pandemic's permeated across the world. Millions of us went working from home. I think that really normalized this idea of working remotely or being an anywhere worker. We think this is quite normal now. If you think back to maybe 5-10 years ago, I know I was a little envious of some people that got to work from home. And yet for the last 18 months, we have been working from home, all of us, as if it was completely normal. But as the pandemic has started to wane off, we have spoken with customers and they are looking to back to work policies, and most are choosing a hybrid work environment. We have many customers looking for that fully integrated room that makes it easy for collaboration and communication with each other. But even in this smart environment, one of the things we've been discussing is how do you democratize the meeting? So you may have people at home, you may have people in the office. This is going to be our standard meeting moving forward. So how do you ensure each of those individuals has the same shared experience? As a salesperson, you're going to have to cater to everyone. And your decision makers, your influencers, they may actually be on the phone and not in the room. So you need to ensure that everybody feels like they're in the room, which tells me that visuals, movement will be necessary for you to be able to not only capture attention, but maintain it. So to be memorable, you have to provide this consistent environment and experience for all involved in the call, which isn't easy to do. So to stand out and be more memorable, there are things that you can do, there are products and software that you can use that really will make you more memorable. And as a salesperson, I think that is your ultimate goal, that at the end of the day, your time with your customer is remembered by that customer because it was unique. So again, include everyone in the room. And there is a way to do this, especially with Reactive Suite. So I'm going to turn this over to Av, and he's going to walk you through how we can work with this democratization of meetings and really stand out as a sales individual. Av?
Hi everyone, my name is Av Udukuri. Thank you for joining me today. I have been trying to figure this problem out for 5 years now. I'm with a startup company. We're a Canadian technology company. We're out of Toronto, so it's really awesome to go ahead and talk to a bunch of customers in our backyard. But what the interesting thing today is, if you look back to a couple of years ago, all of us in sales, in marketing, who present for a living, we were doing one thing. We would be in person, right? And that was easy. When we're in person in a meeting, it's really easy to go ahead and have a connection, build trust. Now, suddenly everybody went remote. So when you go remote, again, it was easy to be democratized because everyone was on remote, everyone was just sharing a deck. Now that you go into hybrid, this becomes really challenging. How do you go ahead and maintain consistency and trust in all of your meetings? Now, a lot of salespeople I know are saying, it's okay, I'm going back to traveling. But I go, hold on, even if you're traveling to go meet someone, it doesn't mean that the stakeholder or the decision maker is going to travel to meet you. They could be remote. It could be that the people that you want to connect to might be sometimes remote and sometimes hybrid. So what are the challenges that you want? So first up, I hate remote meetings. I find them to be exhausting. I'm drained by the end of the day. I am constantly looking to get out. I'm usually not focused. And we have a lot of distractions. Come on, let's admit it. All of us are doing something while we're on webinars, while we're on remote meetings. And what's interesting is this is a huge challenge on the sales side. Actually, there's a lot of great data that shows 69% of people don't believe that virtual selling is as effective as face-to-face. We've grown up with Sales 101, you know, dress the part, know your product, show up on time, you know, you bond over lunches and dinners and drinks, you sell based on relationship, you create value, you're not competing on price, all the classic Sales 101 things. So when you look at the top things, audience is multitasking, right? Absolutely, you cannot deny that. We're all going in call after call after call, we're exhausted, we're multitasking. You can't read each other's body language, gestures, pointing at things. Lots of things are lost on remote meetings. And what that means is you're not really engaging. So if people are just watching you like you're on TV and just listening to something, by definition, that's not an engaging opportunity. So here's your first challenge that you have. You have to somehow be memorable, because when a buying decision-making process is happening, let's say 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, your buyer has to think about your meeting and go, I remember Ab's meeting, I remember Bob's meeting, I remember Mary's meeting, I liked what she had to say. I am going to go ahead and go down the process with them. Now, everyone says 90% of what you say is forgotten after 48 hours. So think about it. Can you think back 3 days ago and remember what was said in what meeting? I bet you can't even remember what meeting you had. So this is absolutely critical. Okay. Number 2, engaging with your audience. So what does engagement mean? Okay, we all get our work done. Engagement means that I'm actually focused. You know when you're playing a game of golf or you're out beers with friends, you look at the time and you go, oh my God, it's already midnight? I thought it was 9 o'clock. But if you're in a really boring meeting, you're at the dentist, 5 minutes could feel like it's an hour. That's engagement. Your brain forgets that you're there, you're paying attention, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So how you present is as important, because if people are not paying attention, they're gonna forget everything. And this is the big one. Executive presence is absolutely critical, and I'm gonna get into that. That means that you're part of the presentation. How many of us just go into a webinar or a slide deck, goes full screen, and someone just talks? There's no executive presence. Let me explain what's actually happening. So, in most times that you're passively absorbing information, this is your brain. I call it your brain on data. What happens is you comprehend and you process information, but you create no long-term memories at all. And this is really indicative of a lot of things that we go through life. Like, we're just passively watching, we're not really committing, and what happens is we kind of recall that it happened, but we don't know what happened. So that's a serious problem. There's no memories. Now, what happens is the way we present information has been messy. What we do is we pull up a whole bunch of data. There's Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, there's all sorts of notifications, and there's too much clutter, it's hard to arrange information, and there's way too many distractions in order to have an effective meeting. So how do you get through? Well, engagement is, imagine that you're face to face with your customers. I can see them, I can pick up a piece of paper, I can point, I can pick up a pen, I can write, I can do all sorts of neat things right there. And at the end of the day, in most modern boardrooms, there's practically no technology. I've been to the biggest boardrooms from Microsoft to Cisco. You walk in, there's a whiteboard, there's a marker, there's a piece of paper, there's a table. But guess what? Some of the biggest deals are done, some of the most engaging conversations happen there, and it's not about technology. It's about how you build this tactile, emotional type of experience. And what happens when you do this is your brain lights up. I am sure I can ask every one of you, remember a class that you had in grade 4? Do you remember a teacher that you knew of in grade 6? You'll probably remember. Do you remember when you met this particular customer at a trade show? You'll remember. Because those are rich experiences. This is what I call your brain on stories. It's not just data. Colors, shapes, movements, language, all sorts of things go in, and according to neuroscience, you need 7 to 8 areas of your brain to light up, and when that happens, you absorb information to long-term memory. When that happens, you absolutely make these memories that you can recall. So what if every one of the product demos, customer onboarding sessions that you have, every type of information session that you give to your customers, your teams, are as memorable as that? How competitive would you be? So the challenge you have today is everyone is saying our companies are productive. For example, company after company is going, we're going to be remote permanently. We're going to go ahead and be permanently in a remote situation, and nobody's going to come back to the office. Well, we're productive. I can't imagine that happening for a long time, especially with remote burnout. See, productivity means you got the job done. Engagement means you care. And that's the challenge. In the hybrid meeting, you have to care. You have to build that trust. So how do we go ahead and do that? And that's part of the technology and tools that I want to go ahead and show you. So traditionally what has happened is a lot of these tools were created with this concept of collaboration. And collaboration was how engineers and designers and all sorts of people got together to create a complicated car, or maybe the NASA space shuttle. We don't relate with it. We don't do that every day. What you have here at the bottom of the pyramid is we have everyday meetings where anyone can join. And what do? I show a deck. I show a piece of data. I have a conversation. And that's what making your meetings being memorable is all about. So there's a few different things that we have to do in order to make our meetings memorable. And I'm now going to go into that. So first up, the way we make our meetings memorable is by changing the way we present. So here's the problem that you have with slides. A long time ago, PowerPoint was invented with the idea of being a visual aid. That was my visual aid, so I can show you some visual interest while I'm talking. But today, we disappear in our remote meetings, and we expect the slide to take over. We're expecting that slide to become the presenter. And if I just let that slide there with nothing changing, nothing happening for minutes a long time, you would be bored no matter the conversation that we're having. The second thing that actually happens is the way we take notes. Every person that I talk to says, oh, I don't have to remember my meetings, I take notes. The next question that I ask is, okay, how many times have you gone back and reviewed every meeting note from last month? When was the last time you did that? Oh, well, I didn't have to. But if you didn't have to review everything, then that means that the notes were irrelevant. Either you remember or you don't remember. Do you remember all your meetings? No, I don't. But you never check your notes. That's right. So the only time you check your notes is when you misremember, when there's a mistake. I'm going to go back. Hey, I know that you told me it was $30 and now you're telling me it's 20. I'm going to go back to my notes. 99% of the time, we rarely check our notes. It's almost like a security blanket. But what happens is if you change the way that you use notes. So let's talk about two different product configurations. I have it written down here. Oh, you're saying that you don't want product B, but you want this option moved over. You don't agree with this. We need to revisit that. Okay, we have a question about what that actually means. And the price here, we want to reduce it by about 20%. Okay, so do you agree with this? Did I capture this information correctly? If I make these changes, are we going to go ahead and move forward to the next step? That's called buying in, and that's visual buy-in, right? Because what happens a lot of times is what you see on the screen has to reinforce what we hear. That's how we build up memories. I could be not paying attention and tell you that, yeah, save 20% of the cost, and I don't even acknowledge you, and you think that that's what I'm looking for. So by being visual, and the problem with notes is we don't do that anymore. So I graduated from U of T Engineering decades ago, back in '96. And I remember in my first job, I was on MSN Messenger, I was on Skype and WebEx back then. Remember WebEx 1.0, the clunky piece of software that it was? Well, today, I'm on Slack, and I'm still on Skype, which is Teams, and my entire process didn't change. I do exactly the same thing. But if you think about how technology has evolved in that last 20 to 25 years, our meeting experience, our remote meeting experience has not changed at all. So what that means is there's an opportunity for us to reinvent what the remote meeting experience should look like. To me, what it is you can differentiate yourself. You can articulate the value and be customer-centric. What does that mean? By differentiating yourself, first of all, I want to be non-linear. I don't want to just present, I want to have a conversation. So if we're stuck in full screen slides all the time, how do you tend to have a conversation? I want to be customer-centric. And what that means is by being visual. I can capture information, I can write down your questions right here, I can articulate my value and make sure that you're understanding it. I can underline, highlight, I can do all that. And then the last thing is being customer-centric. Customer-centric means that I can show you my body language, I can interact with you, and there's a whole setup that you can do that allows hybrid, virtual, remote employees feel like they're in the same room with you. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and show you how we run a few different type of scenarios and different type of meetings and spend 4 or 5 minutes on showing you my setup, and then we'll jump into question and answers. So first up, I want to let everyone know we have a free trial for Reactive. We can help anyone on this webinar get a lot more out of your remote meeting, so there's no obligation. It's free for 30 days. And we can show you how to go ahead and get that to happen. So first up, let me walk you through what Reactive is all about. So Reactive itself is a piece of software that runs on your IFP or your laptop. And what it does is it creates this virtual table. And I love calling it a virtual table because on this table, I can take all of my content. I can take any piece of information that I want, like here's a Word document, here's a PDF, here's a PowerPoint presentation, here's a movie, and I can manipulate it and interact with it as if it's a piece of paper. So I can take this PowerPoint document right here, have a conversation where we circle, we highlight, we cross, we have a discussion. I can go into this movie. I can very quickly pause anywhere I want, and I can have a discussion that says, let's put that caption in here. I want it exactly to be that big. I can go into Word documents. I can do all sorts of things like that. And at the same time, we also have an entire interactive whiteboard that's built in where I can come in and write down questions. I can pin up documents, and I call this my wall. And on that wall, not only can I go ahead and put up documents, but I can also rip out pages and create storyboards. And I can do all sorts of things like that to go ahead and have conversations. So what Reactive really does is it gives you this tool set, a canvas, where we can pin our camera, control our presence, pull up any sort of documents, be nonlinear, and be customer-centric and be visual, so you can articulate all the changes and get buy-in. So to me, it's all about getting to buy-in. And once people feel like they're on the same page, you can build trust in order to go ahead and get to the next step. I would love to open up the conversation to some questions. I know there's some chat, there's questions that are already there. So what I'd like to do is I'll bring Tatiana back up because I'm not looking at the chat. You okay, Tatiana?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to now show you how we engage in a hybrid meeting. So Tatiana is in the office right now participating, and I'm maintaining social distancing. I'm at the board. We have a room camera right here, and we're able to integrate everyone in regardless of where they are.
Yeah, works well. We actually do have a question or two that's actually come up. Ed would like to know, how difficult is it to get trained to get going in a sales presentation? Any tips and tricks to get going?
Awesome, absolutely. So Ed, it's really, really straightforward. So one of the key things that we thought about with Reactive is you don't change the way that you work. Your company and your organization has put a lot of effort into creating content. There's a lot of tools out there that say, oh, stop using PowerPoint. Oh my God, stop using PDF. Build your deck and build your presentation in our web platform. Well, that's really difficult. Marketing departments are not going to go ahead and do that. So Reactive is designed to leverage your existing software. So as you can see here, the way that Reactive works is it connects to your computer, your server, it's Active Directory, Teams, Office 365, OneDrive, everything is integrated in, and I can log in and pull up my content. So I can take my PowerPoint, pull it up, and all I do is move it to where I want. It's exactly like a big iPhone or a smartphone. I can take 2 fingers, rotate it. I can even do all of this with a mouse. I can pick up a document. I can do this any which way. And the integrated pen and eraser allow me to go ahead and have a conversation. So I can pin the camera, move it, pin my content, interact, and do a presentation. So we make a promise that within 30 minutes, we can get you up and running. And in 15 minutes, we'll actually show you the basics. And in 30 minutes, sorry, I said it the wrong way. In 15 minutes, we'll get you up and running. And in 30 minutes, you'll have an effective presentation. But it's like any tool that you use. Look, a hammer and nail, you can learn how to use them in a few minutes. But to become a professional carpenter and get proficiency with it, it takes time and practice. No different from Reactive. It is a hammer and nail. It's what you put into it. The more dynamic and engaging the content, and when you talk about tips and tricks, I feel that there has to be visual, like we're almost like 4-year-olds these days. If every 30 seconds there's no new shiny object, we tend to lose focus. The ability to come in and have a discussion, move things, change sizes and positions, underline, highlight, ask questions, that is the tips that I use and the tricks that I find to be very effective.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Michael. What would you say would be the ideal type of meeting to use Reactive? For instance, my area of sales focus is healthcare. How best would it be to use the applications there?
That's a great question. Healthcare, people think that they're not presenting. Actually, that's all you're doing. So as an example, let me see. I have a whole bunch of template presentations I'm going to jump into right now. medical presentation right here. I'm going to go ahead and pin up my camera again. Give me a second. Okay, so the ability for me to get onto a call with my patient and engage with my patient is really critical. So every doctor has figured out that they are more efficient, patients don't cancel virtual meetings, and the advantages go on and on. 80%, I think one of the doctors, I have a testimonial, over 80% of their patient engagement doesn't have to be in person anymore. So what can I do? I can pull up x-rays. I can show you last month's x-ray. This is 60 days ago. This is now. And we can talk about how there's changes there that we don't see. We can bring up things like charts. We can bring up your historical information that tie into your well-being and health. So I can come in, I can review information, I can put up diagnostic information based on, this is your particular test or result, and I can also capture my findings and come in and say, look, we had a strategy. We had a strategy 30 days ago where we were at 5 milligrams, but I think we need to up it to 10 milligrams in order to see more improvement. So there's an opportunity to do a lot of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump in quickly and show you one of our health practitioners who already implemented this. So if I go back in here, and you can see how dynamic I can be in all of these presentations right now. So if I come in right here, and testimonials, Dr. Sanjeev Goel is a primary care physician. He's a primary care physician in Brampton, and all he does is virtual patient care today. He's able to come in, prescribe, bring in blood test results, bring in health information, and have a great canvas in order for him to interact with his patients. Hopefully that helps. This is a phenomenal tool that can transform remote health.
Thank you for that. Just to add to that, just by fluke today, I did have a doctor's appointment, and my doctor did go through my tests with me and rattled off umpteen numbers at me. I couldn't write them down fast enough. Had he had a display for me to see the test results, it would have been a better call for me, frankly, because I had to keep asking him to stop and repeat himself. So it's just fluke today that I had that very experience.
And you're probably also writing down a whole bunch of numbers in a piece of napkin instead of him putting it down, creating a PDF and sending it to you, which would have been far more effective because you don't even know what those numbers mean now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have another question. I hope I don't get your name wrong. I apologize if I do. It's Okiyama. Thank you, Ab. This is great and memorable indeed. How well does it work if you're a remote participant from home and making a presentation with your laptop without touch function?
Awesome. So let me actually do something very interesting here. I am going to connect. This is my office where I'm constantly doing presentations. So now, Reactive also integrates in things like AirPlay, Miracast, Chromecast. So I just brought my phone in. And Tatiana, I'm going to go over. You might just have to talk to what I'm doing. So this is just my normal laptop. I've invested in a little light. So I can come in. I can go take my camera. I can pin it right there. I'm using just a mouse, as you can see. And I can do practically everything that I want to do on the touchscreen using my laptop. Now, I've also invested in a small Wacom tablet where I can come in and write. Is that coming through over there well?
Yes, it is.
So this entire setup can be off the shelf, and of course, I'm just picking up the mouse, I can zoom in, zoom out, move objects. So there's absolutely no restrictions to how you interact with Reactive today. Did that come through?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So there, just to be clear for the audience, there is 2 versions of Reactive Suite. You can have Reactive Suite for your for your IWB or your IFPD. You can also have Reactive though for your personal PC, which means you're able to, whether you're in the meeting room or you're managing your call from home, you're still able to use Reactive and have that same experience. We have a couple more questions here. From Adam, can my IT department manage the software and the IFPD?
Oh, okay. So, great question. This product is built on standard Windows. This is just, think of this as a big Windows monitor connected up to your laptop or some sort of a managed device. And what that does is it completely reduces the IT headache. First, you can go ahead and put in your image, you can put in your security profiles, your user profiles, it'll automatically live. You can also have it talk to Active Directory or your internal server. You want to connect using a VPN, no problem. Reactive just looks like another app. We don't move, copy, or host your data. We're not like a web platform where you're uploading all your sensitive information onto the cloud. It's completely on-prem and it works with your IT department. So when you're talking about HIPAA compliancy, when you're talking about getting people to move their data or protect sensitive information, Reactive is automatically compliant, which is a key thing in rolling it out. It's like a PDF viewer, it's like a file explorer. You can just install it with one click and put your data in there and automatically start presenting.
Thanks. Irina's asking, can you tell us more about the hardware that's needed for us to be able to use Reactive Suite?
Sure, actually. Now, as I suggested, your investment can be as minimal as just setting up a license on your laptop and using it. You could invest more into huddle spaces, and I'm going to walk you through what I have here today. So this is my conference room. So what you're seeing here, it's a Ricoh 65-inch IFP, and that IFP has been optimized and designed for pen writing. So you can see how fast and how natural it is for me to write, and that's critical. What I also have is I have an audience monitor. If someone in our audience could potentially turn their camera on in a normal meeting, I would be seeing, absolutely, thank you Rod, awesome, great to meet you. So I can stand in front and turn my body and look at you as if you're my audience, and then I have a camera here looking at me. So this is almost like a broadcast studio. A lot of people have compared Reactive to like a broadcast studio in your office. So you're seeing me at the board standing up, so hopefully you feel like you're being invited into my office, and I also feel like you're here when all the cameras are turned on. It's amazing. Everyone waves when I point the camera at them. But at the same time, Tatiana can join, and she can go ahead and participate as an on-prem participant. And what's interesting is from her perspective, she can also see everyone. Now, I also have a room camera here, and that room camera is basically picking up everyone. So what Reactive does is it takes off-the-shelf cameras, off-the-shelf monitors, and integrates everything into a simple solution in order to go ahead and make it work. Now moving over here, I just have, this could be a Lenovo, this could be a Dell, this is a Microsoft laptop here, and I just use my Microsoft laptop with my mouse and Wacom Tablet. So the setup can be very simple, or it could be a lot more complex that serves as an entire boardroom solution, whatever you're looking for.
Thank you, Av. Rod asked, if the person on the other end of the call also has Reactive, can they be interactive as well?
Absolutely. There's a whole bunch of things that we're actually working on. So here's one of the biggest challenges. People have to be proficient. So one of the first things that Reactive will allow you to do is it will allow you in the next build to connect your camera, your mouse, your keyboard, and your iPhone or personal device. So the idea is instead of it just being my camera and Tatiana in the room, you will actually be able to also pin your presence. So imagine that you're running a conference or a webinar where we have a panel of people. I have 4 people running this webinar, and I need all of them to elevate their presence. So Reactive will make anyone feel like they're connected. Rod, today we don't have those features. They're rolling out. So the product only launched finished beta about 6-7 weeks ago. And this is kind of our first webinar. We had over 2,000 people being beta customers for us over the last 18 months. We refined the product, and we want to now teach our customers to be great presenters such that they can then take Reactive Suite from their laptop and also be great co-presenters. Hopefully that answers your question. It's coming really soon.
All right, I think we have most of the questions here in chat that I've seen. I also noticed a message from Rob, our facilitator. Some of you experienced some camera lag. Hopefully you saw the message in Teams. It could be just due to the Teams webinar that we're using, so my apologies if you experienced a bit of lag on that. Any more questions coming in? Feel free to use the chat.
Does anybody have any comments? I would love to hear your thoughts. You have all been to dozens and dozens of webinars and conferences over the last 18 months. I would like your honest opinion. How would you rate this webinar compared to anything else out there?
Don't be shy, just take yourself off mute.
Awesome. So does this webinar make you feel like you're part of the conversation? Now I know that in a webinar format everybody turns their cameras off and their mics off, but if this was an interactive conversation with your customers, do you feel that this would differentiate what you're doing compared to what your competitors are doing? Does this drive value that way? Does this make you feel more connected in a hybrid environment?
So in the chat we're hearing 11 out of 10. Yes, it's great. Yes, it's awesome. So I'm glad to see that the audience members are seeing the possibilities of what they can do with the software within their own occupations. Yes, even my willing to answer your question is higher than usual. Thank you for that. I like that.
I see a question, does Reactive work with Zoom or Teams?
Yes, I was just going to ask you that.
Thank you. So Reactive is just an app running on Windows. What it does is it gives you a great screen sharing. Now here's what's really interesting. What is looking at is when you think about video conferencing, to me this is like a phone. All it does is it connects two people together. Now, where video conferencing falls apart is they don't offer you any tools or any mechanisms by which you can interact. They basically say, it's kind of like saying, here's a stage, go for it. I put a bunch of actors on a stage and say, run with whatever you want. Now, if there's a director and there's a script writer, suddenly the play would be far more interesting. So that to me is a great analogy for Reactive. This is the stage, this is the director, and it gives you a canvas that no matter what video conferencing platform you're on, you're gonna be feeling connected. So when that happens, you have a great session. So all you do is Zoom, Teams, WebEx, you share your screen, and you do everything else in Reactive. It standardizes the experience. So it doesn't matter if one customer's on Teams, one customer's on Zoom. Oh, Zoom has a whiteboard, but Teams doesn't, but Teams has a presenter mode, but Zoom doesn't. You're navigating all of these key features. Reactive offers you the same set of features no matter what tool you're using.
Got a couple more questions that came in now. Do you, this is from Akiyama, do you think a 360-degree camera will help your configuration, capturing the whole atmosphere of the room, making the remote participants feel more as if they were in the room?
So we have recently filed a bunch of patents and IP around really cool ways that we're going to introduce 360-degree cameras. But as an example, the camera that Tatiana is on, if you stand up and move Tatiana, you'll see what Reactive is doing. It actually is following the individual. So now if I come into this room and I now join the conversation and we're 6 feet apart, I don't have to pick up remotes and position and change all that. Or if I walk away, it automatically detects what is going on. So when you talk about 360-degree cameras, there's going to be some really cool things that we're planning on as to how cameras integrate in using AI such that the meeting participants feel connected at all times. So you can imagine what we can do when we have face detection, AI, voice detection, and a lot of these things are becoming off the shelf today. So stay tuned. Very soon, we are going to go ahead and release features. So investing in that type of hardware is really interesting, but till now there's no software platform that leverages any of this. And that's exactly the type of problems that we want to solve long term.
Yeah, we are starting to see this throughout with all the vendors we work with. We're starting to see a lot of IA incorporated in, and we're expecting to see a lot more. I have another question here, Av, from Zayad. Is there a Mac version?
Unfortunately, not yet. We have been focused on Windows, so as a Mac user, there's a few things you can do. You could use things like Boot Camp. I am not a Mac user, but I know there's things like Boot Camp that allow you to reboot into Windows and use Reactive. There's also software like Parallels that allow you to run Reactive in an emulator mode. I have had customers who have been very successful with doing that. I do know you need a little bit more of a powerful Mac, but in general, most modern Macs are more powerful than PCs anyway, I believe. So hence you might be okay. But absolutely, we want to come up with a Mac version. I was a Windows engineer, so I started developing it on that, and I need to find a Mac counterpart who can start working away on it, and hopefully very soon we can go do that.
So I'm hearing very cool and wow from our audience, so that's fantastic. In the future, will Reactive, this is from Alberto, in the future, will Reactive Suite have handwriting to text in the scribble space?
It's a really good question, and this is something that I fight with all the time with teams and technology. And the reason we don't have some of these tools is the frustration that happens with most of those language processing systems. The famous joke, hey Siri, call me a cab, and suddenly it says, okay, Mr. Cab, right? Like, I mean, the problem with Reactive doing handwriting recognition is, let's just say I did this, and suddenly most of the tools go, right? Like, then I sit there going, geez, let me edit it, let me fix it, I didn't mean that, let me go ahead and change that. We wanted meetings to be organic. We wanted them to be fluid. Again, I go back to the meeting that we're used to. When we're face to face in most of our conversation, oops, that's the French version. In most of our conversations, how do we interact with people? We actually, even in the most modern boardrooms, we sit there at a table, we pick up pens, point at documents, and we write. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So my biggest concern is the more technology that we try to automate things that are not good, the more it falls apart, which means that you get frustrated, which means you keep going undo, undo, undo. So absolutely, as the technology gets there, I would love to go ahead and do it. But right now, from an efficiency point of view, I have not seen personally any handwriting tool, when they say it's 90% accurate, 10% is still a really painful amount of errors for me to constantly fix. So we are of the nature that meetings should be dynamic and fluid. So today you write on a whiteboard, take a picture, and walk away. This is a way better experience than that. Let's actually make this work and then move it forward.
This is Harry. Just a quick comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I think your points are valid about text, converting text, because I think the images and the way the text is written, the size of the font, is as relevant as, like, if I'm going to write the word boot or the word BC larger, I'm going to write it in a different font, or it's not a different font, but a different style. So if you convert that to text, you lose that. That's part of the interaction that's going on, is how it's being written.
You know what? That's a great point. Heading 1, okay? Point A, point B. You know, a lot of times, the way we express things by size and by shape, by position, is really critical. And I find that a lot of the OCR tools just immediately come in and bam, it's just one, it's as if all the formatting is gone. And I agree with you, Rob. Thank you for that point. I find that to be frustrating as well. And one of these days, the technology will come to the point where it is really good and absolutely will integrate it in.
I have another question from David. In future, will you be able to sign in, authenticate document signatures during meetings?
So David might have seen our press release a little while ago. We actually filed a bunch of patents and we announced that we were going to go ahead and do this, which is still on the roadmap. So think about a video signing room. The ability for me to come in and say, okay, Tatiana, I want you to sign here, and I send you a link to a signature pad where you pick up your phone and sign with your finger, and it authenticates. So today what happens with signatures are, you take the we finish a great meeting. I'm done, okay? Hey, Tatiana says she's gonna sign on the dotted line. Okay, let me go back to my email at 5 o'clock after my meetings are done, take the PDF, go to Adobe Sign, or go to DocuSign, set it all up. But then by then, she's already forgotten about the meeting. She's buggered off. She's got her glass of wine in her hand. And she goes, I'm going to do it on Monday. And by the time Monday comes around, you know, I don't know if let's revisit this deal again. Like, okay, every salesperson wants to sign on the dotted line. That's why we love to travel, right? You want to sign? I'll come. I'm in the area at 2 o'clock. I'm just going to drop by. Come on, how many of us have not done that? We're not even in the area, right? So the idea for Reactive to immediately come in and say, hey, let's sign right now. Are we good to go? Let's make this be a document that gets authenticated, verified instantly. It has an enormous amount of power. So what we're doing today, there's presentation meetings, there's team huddles, there's signing meetings, there's all sorts of different type of meetings. Reactive will grow to encompass all these type of meetings over time. That's our goal.
Thank you. This is an interesting point that you and I have discussed a few times. PowerPoint animation is also a good way to make it visually memorable, and some presenters, including myself, still love this feature. Will you lose animation of PowerPoint on the canvas? If so, what do you think about this trade-off?
Great question. So this is a debate that I've had with many people. So here's the challenges that I have from a technical point of view. If every feature of every app got into our meeting, okay? So Ab, I want to open up an Excel spreadsheet and start editing. I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, Reactive can't really offer that many advantages, because at that point in time, might as well live inside PowerPoint or live inside Excel. PowerPoint animations are clunky. They take a huge amount of code in order to get it all right. But the reality is this. The reason PowerPoint animations were created was to make the slide interesting. But remember, to me, PowerPoint is my visual aid. It is not trying to make my information interesting. And if you look at every sales trainer, every sales coach, every performance, and there's thousands of them, one of the key things that they do is, like, if you go to Amazon, you go to Google, don't use PowerPoint. They're going the opposite way, right? So you don't do a TED Talk on stage and have animation. So I am very opposed to my slide deck having a lot of visual, because at the end of the day, I want you to remember that. I can tell you that we checked off those points, and I have the ability to bring in nonlinear information. So as an example, let's just say you said, Ab, where did you get this stat from? I have the ability to come in and pull up content elsewhere, like here's the report that I saw, and that's where we got that stat from. So to me, most of the engagement of your meeting shouldn't feel gimmicky. Because when I meet you face to face, I print something out on paper, I put it in front of you, there's no more gimmicks, right? It's you building trust. So I personally feel that a lot of work into PowerPoint can be saved, and we can do it in dramatically different ways that makes people feel engaged without having to rely on gimmicks. And absolutely, I don't mean that as a negative. Okuyama. But it's more of how much do you put into that, and how do you be nonlinear without it.
And I think it's interesting that you said, you know, that technology has changed over the last 25 years, and you know, animation, you know, that's something I used to use quite a bit, and she's right, like trying to get the information across, make it more interesting, but with the new feature sets and new software that's out, like Reactive, it allows you to be interesting in other ways.
I'll give you a story. I don't know if any of you here use Prezi. I remember seeing Prezi maybe 10 years ago, and the first time that I saw it, I was captivated, because it's like, woo, it's zooming in and zooming out, and like Apple Keynote, same thing, right? But you know what happened? Within 3 slides, I stopped paying attention to what the host was saying. I wanted to guess where they were going to zoom into next. So they had this beautiful tree, and they were zooming into the branch to show you this product feature, then zooming into this branch. And I'm like, oh, is he going to zoom into that 3rd branch? Oh, snap, he zoomed into the roots. I didn't expect that at all. But at the end of the meeting, now the second time I saw it, I started becoming a little nauseated. I'm like, okay, stop zooming in. I just want to start focusing on the information. So I got into Prezi for a few cycles, and then immediately said, that's the last thing I want. I don't want people to feel motion sick. I don't want them to look at the gimmick. Me presenting the data should be interesting enough. So there are a lot of tools out there, and I feel that there's a ton of gimmicks, and that's one of the reasons why, like, you know, in the last 18 months, I don't think that I've even seen one PowerPoint presentation or a Prezi presentation with a lot of motion in. We're trying to go back to conversations again, right?
Any other questions from the audience? I think we've answered everything here in chat. I'll give it 1 minute here for any additional comments or questions.
So you want to talk about the free trial again?
Yeah, I think we're done with questions. So yeah, if you could bring up that slide up, that would be great.
Okay, there we go. Let me go back to that.
So folks, thank you for spending time with us, but we have some great information still left for you, so don't go away quite yet. We do have an offering if you would like to sample Reactive Suite. So when we're done this webinar, you will receive a thank you for joining email from us, and in that email will be a link that we will provide you so that you can go ahead and enter your name, and it will send you to a download link where you can download your free copy of Reactive Pro. We call Reactive Pro the Reactive we use on our personal PCs. It is a trial for 30 days that you can try out. If you have any questions, concerns, you can contact your account manager at Rico. You can contact myself, you can contact our support. It's quite easy to set up, and we would love for you to try it, and frankly we would love some feedback back from you as well. Do you see the value? Does it work for you? Can you see yourself being more memorable, showcasing your content through the Reactive lens? So would love to also get some feedback as well. So before we let you go, I'm going to turn this back over to Rob, our facilitator. Rob?
Thanks, Patsy. And sorry, you stepped on my lines a little bit. But just want to say that if you want to watch your inbox for the recording of our session and as I mentioned, there'll be a link in the email, which will direct you to a form or landing page where you can take up to 30-day trial. So look for those, or look for that in the next few business days, likely after the Thanksgiving Day break here in Canada. So with that, I will say stay safe and have a wonderful long weekend.
Thank you, everyone. So you know what's really funny? Rob goes, every time it seems Av has the video up, the lag goes away.
What video?
Whenever you brought up, like, you know the one file you have, the video file? He said whenever you brought that file up, the lag totally went away.
You know what it is? I bet you that Teams knows that there's a video and there's more motion happening, so I'll actually pump it up. I think that they're throttling it down. Because if you're sitting on an empty screen with very little motion, it probably just says, big deal, I'm not going to give you a lot of motion. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet you they have, like, hey, I'm going downhill, so why should I put the gas on? I'm going to put more gas on. So I bet you there's a bunch of stupid things like that it's hard to gain. Based on how much data they have, how much, it's prioritizing based on who needs more. And those type of things are always going to be wrong because it has no idea what you're doing, right? But I think it went well, right?
Yeah, I think it went okay. Like I said, it was a little laggy in the beginning, so Rob and I were talking back and forth, and he said, should I send a message out? I don't think I should. I said, no, I think you should. So he did. He put in chat. I've heard from a couple of you that, it's lagging a bit. That's because we're in, the Microsoft webinar team environment versus webinar, our apologies kind of thing.
Right. So, were there any customers there? I'm hoping it wasn't all just Rico, right?
No, there were customers, but from what I could see, not as many as I was hoping for. So I sent him a note about that too.
Well,
And you know what the funny part is? Yeah. The people that asked questions, they were not Rico people, just so you know.
Oh yeah?
No. That's why I only gave first name away too, like Oki, whatever that person's name is. I thought it was a girl. I don't know if it's a girl.
Oh yeah,
or
you
boy.
said she, so I'm like, oh geez, I thought that suddenly this is a. Because you can't tell with a Japanese name, right?
I know, and that's the one mistake I made.
That's okay.
And in the beginning, I didn't know what camera to look at, so I don't know if I was all goofy there in the beginning. Yeah, so no, the questions came from non-Rico employees. So.
Well, obviously I know Irene and Adam, but the rest I did not know. That's really good.
Yeah.
Whoever that Andre was, 11 out of 10,
The one that cracked me up was it was memorable enough for me to even ask a question. I nearly peed I had to hold on to my laughter on that one. I just thought that was so good.
That was so cute.
Oh crap, he's got a green room briefing after the fact. Hold on, I'm just signing in now with it.
Let's go in. Is there one right now? After the fact? How do I do that?
Yeah. Did he send? Well, he just sent it to me, so I just opened it.
There we go.
Hey there. Oh,
Give me 1 second. I'm just going to get some glass of water and then I'll be right back.
Okay. Hold on.
I need a paper towel.
What it does and what you can do. Like I think this is really good.
Hey guys.
Hey, I just went to get a glass of water.
Okay. Really? You need water?
So yeah, I did notice the lag a little bit in the beginning, and we were laughing at your comment about the video. So what we think maybe is like when you bring a video up, it's like Microsoft almost knows that you need more power or something, because that's really bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm excited that most of the questions, although it seemed there were not a lot of customers on the call, most of the questions came from customers. That was exciting.
Yeah, how did it look from your end?
It looked fine. It was great. I was more, again, I'm not an attendee, but I was hearing from other people like Julie Patterson,